Bullet Club.
I'm back with the reaction videos today. Today we are looking at WrestleMania video. And it's called Behind the Titantron, the Murder of Bruiser Brody. And that being said, I want to look at, because I've been born with Bruiser Brody. I didn't know Bruiser Brody got wasted, got murdered. So I had to look for myself, look at this video. He will explain everything what happened. So, let go. Let's get this shit.
Journalistic point of view. Nothing more has been said in this video other than that of which has been reported by various media sources and backed up with sources seen at the end of this video.
Alright.
On the 16th of July 1988, Bruiser Brody was backstage in the Face locker room at the Juan Lobriel Stadium in Bayamon, Puerto Rico, when Booker and wrestler Jose Gonzalez asked him to go to the bathroom to discuss business. Wrestlers heard a scream, and Tony Atlas walked in to see Bruiser Brody holding his guts and bleeding while Gonzalez held a knife. Brody would be dead the next day, and Gonzalez charged with homicide. A year later, Gonzalez would be acquitted on the grounds of self-defense. However, there are some who believe Brody was killed in cold blood, and that the Puerto Rican officials covered up the story. Even more shocking, some inside the industry felt it was only a matter of time before someone got to Brody. Join us as Behind the Titantron looks at the death of Bruiser Brody. The man who would become Bruiser Brody was born Frank Goodish. Goodish distinguished himself in high school sports in football and basketball, but even then his rebellious streak held him back. He played college football at West Texas State before trying his hand in the NFL. After being let go by the Washington Redskins, Brody worked in the Canadian Football League and minor league football until he met Ivan Putski, who suggested a 6'6" Goodish look into professional wrestling. Working in Tri-State Wrestling, the forerunner to Mid-South Wrestling, Big Time Wrestling, the forerunner to World Class Championship Wrestling, and Championship Wrestling from Florida, Brody learned his craft, becoming a rising star. His combination of size, physique, charisma, and ring work was incredible.
Wow. He carried a chain.
Brody was by all accounts a shrewd businessman. He knew his appeal to promoters, and he was aware of how many promoters manipulated wrestlers. Brody also felt his character had to be protected, which meant not doing jobs to just anyone, or even selling for that matter.
Well, let me read this. Well, be damned. That's crazy.
Over time, Brody developed a reputation for no-selling and for changing finishes during a match. Accounts vary, with some claiming Brody would no-show a promoter, but he could make sure they got the message other ways, such as working a dog of a match. Others claim Brody was not above no-showing an event or walking out on a promoter over a disagreement. While Brody had a bad reputation with some promoters, some believe it was more a case of Brody having no tolerance for lies or games. Brody's thoughts are perhaps best summed up by this quote: "The truth is that all wrestlers are sheep. Wrestlers don't have guts. They're all at the end of the cliff and will jump off as a group. They'll stand up and make a lot of noise beforehand. Then when the promoter comes in, they go all, yes sir, I hate that." It was wrestler Killer Kowalski who told WWF promoter Vince McMahon about Brody after seeing him in Florida. While Brody was given a big push in the WWF, he reportedly rubbed people up the wrong way. One wrestler in particular. At one point, he was pitted against Jose Gonzalez, best known to American fans as the mass wrestler Invader #1, who believed he was in for a substantial push but found Brody refusing to put him over. As might be expected, this didn't endear Brody to Gonzalez. Brody earned title shots against WWF champion Bruno Sammartino, but soon saw his push fizzle out. Brody was reportedly involved in a shouting match with promoter Vince McMahon Sr. that nearly led to an altercation with McMahon's enforcer, Gorilla Monsoon. Brody soon found himself persona non grata in the United States. He then worked overseas in New Zealand until promoter Fritz Von Erich brought him into his Texas promotion, running a lucrative feud. The Fritz Von Erich vs. Bruiser Brody feud proved successful, and Brody developed a friendship with Fritz and his wrestling sons. According to the website, Retroist.com, Bruiser was on a tour of Japan with David Von Erich and Ric Flair in 1984, when David was found dead. Flair contends that David overdosed and that Bruiser quietly removed the evidence to both save the Von Erichs from ridicule and to also reduce the chance of an investigation into other wrestlers on the tour, as Brody was a notorious steroid user. Brody's run in world class also restored his reputation, proving promoters will put up with just about anything if a wrestler draws. Brody's reputation earned him the attention of wrestling promoters in Japan, and he went to work in Giant Baba's All Japan Wrestling. He quickly gained fame as the intelligent monster, a wild brawler with a keen wrestling mind. Brody shrewdly crafted his persona, swinging a long chain during his ring entrance as Led Zeppelin's Immigrant Song played. Brody carried the chain wherever he went in Japan, be it a restaurant or store. Brody commanded top dollar in Japan, and by 1985 he was making an incredible $14,000 a week in New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Wow. That lot of money.
Puerto Rico's World Wrestling Council was at one point a hot promotion, helped in part by the legendary team of Bruiser Brody and Stan Hansen. The two Roughnecks worked some of the company's biggest main events during the mid-80s. Despite bringing in large crowds, paydays could be a long incoming, with promoters allegedly writing bad checks. Given Brody's no-nonsense reputation, this provided conflict, particularly due to the presence of Gonzalez. Gonzalez was involved in the WWC as a wrestler and as a booker. Stories have it that Brody routinely embarrassed Gonzalez in front of other wrestlers. According to former NWA World Heavyweight Champion Jack Briscoe, Frank would belittle Gonzalez in front of the boys. He probably pushed over the line. Puerto Rico is such a little place. Wrestler-turned-manager Buck Robley adds, Frank would scream at Jose when he tried to give a finish in the dressing room, and the midget would be so scared he wouldn't do anything. Then all of a sudden, Frank would say, "It's okay, don't worry about it." But when he got in the ring, Frank would double-cross Jose on the finish. In hindsight, it's hard to deny wondering if this motivated Gonzalez's actions that fateful day of July 16, 1988. At the time, the WWC promotion was co-owned by Carlos Colon and Victor Jovica, and there was talk that both men were pressuring Gonzalez to deal with Brody's impudence. Several wrestlers, including Tony Atlas, Mark and Chris Youngblood, Bobby Jaggers, Hercules Ayala, Savio Vega, and Dutch Mantell were in the base locker room with Brody the day of his assault. By all accounts, Gonzalez showed up with a towel in hand and asked Brody to discuss business with him in the bathroom, a de facto
at that time.
From there, stories differ, with some wrestlers recounting hearing a scream, while others hearing a scuffle followed by a scream. Tony Atlas recalled hearing the scuffle, then two screams. When I heard it the second time, I ran to the shower and pulled open the door. Carlos was right beside me, and I saw Brody bent over. When I looked up, I saw Jose with a knife in his hand, as if he was getting ready to cut Brody's throat. I grabbed Brody and pulled him back by the waist. When I pulled Brody back, the knife came down and cut off his ponytail. Carlos shot in front of me and grabbed Jose and pinned him up against the wall. Then Brody looked at me and said, "Brother, I'm hurt." Brody was in trouble, and some believe he knew he was dying. Brody reportedly pleaded with Carlos Colon to take care of his son. Wrestlers observed Brody's blood appeared to be bubbling, a possible sign because he had been cut in a lung. As Brody lay bleeding, Gonzalez walked out, his shirt covered in blood, and returned later with a fresh shirt. In the meantime, his knife disappeared. A ring doctor checked on Brody, but he needed further medical assistance. A wrestler called a radio station to broadcast an ambulance was needed, but the ambulance reportedly took an hour to reach the stadium due to heavy traffic. When the ambulance arrived, Tony Atlas had to carry Brody up the stairs, as the small attendants, a woman and an old man, couldn't lift Brody. Brody was taken to the hospital where he died the next day. The quality of medical care he received is in question, with some believing Brody might have lived had doctors not conducted unnecessary exploratory surgery. The autopsy on Brody revealed no drugs or alcohol in his system. Some accounts are that he might have lived, but he had taken aspirin. Brody was known for taking aspirin for chronic elbow pain and to help bleed during matches, but one report states there was no aspirin found in his blood.
fuck?
There is no question that Jose Gonzalez stabbed Brody. The question is whether it was self-defense or murder. What motivation could Gonzalez have had? One is Gonzalez was tired of having Brody mocking him and refusing to follow orders. In his book Tributes, Dave Meltzer notes some claim Gonzalez was paranoid about his position as a babyface, and Brody was competition for the spot. Longtime friend Gary Hart's theory on things: in my opinion, Gonzalez tried to earn points by showing he could handle a tough guy, and it got out of hand. Man to man, he had no chance. So two men got into a knife fight, but only one man had a knife. Wrestler Tony Atlas believes there may have been a financial motive. The only thing I remember about Brody was that 2 days earlier, Brody had said to me, "Tony, I finally got in." Whatever that meant, he didn't say, but I think he meant he got shares in the WWC. I know he wasn't talking about wrestling there. The only people who really know what happened are Brody, Jose, and Carlos. However, Tony Atlas remarked that Brody's days were numbered. The story was out after Brody's death in Puerto Rico. He was supposed to leave Puerto Rico to go to Japan. They were waiting on him there too. If it didn't happen in Puerto Rico, it was going to happen in Japan. Wrestler Nick Bockwinkel is quoted in the book Bruiser Brody. Now, from what I understand, he had been going to Puerto Rico for some time, making some good money. The sad thing that happened in Puerto Rico was he again decided to jack around the promoter. And he just ran into a promoter whose ego was probably as big as his. And he pushed the buttons hard enough, and one of the buttons pushed back. Harley Race is quoted as saying, "I'm sure I'm not the first one to tell you this, but his attitude got him into trouble. When he went to Puerto Rico, I told him, if you don't change your attitude when you're over there, you won't live to get off the island." And he didn't.
The dude trying to warn Brody.
Questions of competence and or possible corruption arose concerning the investigation and subsequent trial. Tony Atlas quickly learned someone spread a story that a fan had stabbed Bruiser Brody. When he found out, he went to the police, bringing Samoan wrestler Sika for protection. In the book Bruiser Brody, Atlas recalls, "I told the police exactly what I saw, and who else was in the dressing room. I said, go ask that guy, and ask this guy." They went and asked them people, and they all said, "I don't know nothing. I didn't see nothing. I didn't see nothing." Made me look like a big old liar. Gonzalez stood trial for voluntary manslaughter after the original charge of first-degree murder was reduced. Gonzalez's business associates Colon and Jovica testified for him, and Brody was vilified as an out-of-control wild man whom Gonzalez had no choice but to defend himself against. A jury ultimately ruled Gonzalez not guilty due to self-defense. Former AWA World Heavyweight Champion Nick Bockwinkel's comments reflect how the jury may have felt. It was just a matter of time, and needless to say, the gentleman down there was found not guilty by self-defense. All he had to do was show pictures from some of his matches, and the jury, along with a sharp attorney, could imagine what took place. But Frank did that to himself. He brought it upon himself. What of Brody's friends, though? Where were they? While some wrestlers did not want to get involved, some stood up for what they felt was right, seeking justice for the death of their friend. However, justice did not come. Wrestlers Dutch Mantell and Tony Atlas recall receiving their subpoena to appear the day after the trial ended. "I was told by the detectives that Jose Ortez Gonzalez would be charged with first-degree murder and advised me that when the time for the trial came, I would be subpoenaed and transported back to PR to testify. They told me that airfare and hotel would be arranged for me and that security would be provided. That's what they said. However, that's not what they did. I got 2 separate subpoenas for the trial. The first trial date was postponed. The second trial was scheduled for January 23rd to 26, 1989. I still have my subpoena. It was issued on the 3rd of January 1989, but according to the post date, it was not mailed until the 13th of January 1989. That meant that it laid on somebody's desk for a full 10 days. Remember, the trial was to start on January 23rd. I received the subpoena on January 24th. I had already heard the verdict by the time I opened the subpoena. I never heard from the detectives again, not even to this day.
That's fucked up.
Gonzalez would be involved in a tasteless angle where he staged an attack on Japanese wrestler Atsushi Onita. Depending on whom you believe, the angle was a recreation of the stabbing incident. Given Brody's legend in Japan, few people were surprised when the angle fell flat. Gonzalez continued wrestling, retiring in 2006. Bruiser Brody's reputation continues to live on, with many praising him as one of the best big men in the business, as well as an innovator in brawling. Mick Foley credits Brody with inspiring his style of wrestling. People have speculated what Brody's career might have been like had he lived. A program in the WWF or WCW could have been huge, but given Brody's stubborn streak, it's arguable he would never have lasted there long. Promoters might not have hired him for the fear that he would be a disruptive presence in the locker room. Brody's contributions to the wrestling industry are undeniable. As for his reputation among wrestlers and promoters, Winston Churchill's famous words sum things up best. You have enemies? Good. That means you've stood up for something, sometime in your life. Well guys, that about wraps up episode 6 of Battling the Titantron. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a like if you did and subscribe if you already haven't. And I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.
Oh my god. That's fucked up, man. Like, I didn't know I know that Jose Gonzalez was charged for that murder of Bruiser Brody in Puerto Rico. And that shit happened that day. It is in the my thoughts can't think right now. What I just watched. Yeah, I just heard. What happened to Frank Goodish, aka Bruiser Brody? What happened to Brody? It should never happen to nobody in pro wrestling, because pro wrestling is a work. Pro wrestling is a work. You pretend to fight, but at the same time, reality is the real life drama behind the scenes. You get heat. You get backstage heat in real life fights. In the ring or out of the ring. Because it's real life out here. Because it's crazy ass people in this world that we live in this society. And I want to say this on the real. Killing a wrestler who could never give his refuse to put you over, and you want to kill him for that with a fucking knife. Like, no, don't do that. Put the weapons down and fight like men. Yeah, man. I'm just saying that on the real. Like, you use a knife, use a big ass knife, that means you're a coward. You're a gutless coward. Like, don't be a fucking pussy. Seriously. And another thing I wanted to talk about, the fucking judge, the jury, Carlos Colon and Jovica, these motherfuckers, like, y'all was there. Y'all was there that day, that night, when Bruiser Brody got murdered. Y'all was there. And Tony Atlas was there. And he heard two screams. This shit don't make sense. Murder is bad. Murder is not the way to solve your problems. The problem's gonna be in jail. You die in jail. Die in prison. You get raped in prison. You're gonna have sentenced to life for first-degree murder. You murder a wrestler, you get life without parole. And you say it's self-defense? bullshit. That's some BS bullshit right there. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to end this video. Let me know in the comments below what you think of the Bruiser Brody, what happened to him in 1988 in Puerto Rico. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts on that. And share this video. Subscribe to WrestleLania. Subscribe to their channel. To his channel. Because he needs them likes. Need some support for him. I'm going to keep watching his videos from now on of wrestling contests. So, like this video, subscribe to Learn Dragon TV. This is Learn Dragon. Long live Brody. Rest in peace. Dragon Club, we're out of here. Kill shot.
Bullet Club. 4.